Don't love the storm that we're kind of heading into.
After too much time and money spent in this yard, it was time to get back in the water. We made a trip to the grocery store before we returned our rental car, filled up our water tanks, and waited for our time slot. This was a pretty nerve-wracking day. I don't know about the rest of you, but when something big is happening, like launching your boat, I find it hard to do anything else until that task is over. It was just nerve-wracking to get back out there, not to mention that we had to back out of these docks.
Testing.
You did.
We did.
This weather is not ideal.
It is not. I don't know what that means. I think temperature. Can you open the hatch?
Maybe there's no water coming out.
Okay. We have to anchor.
Okay.
This guy just wait down there.
It's okay. Everything's fine.
Yeah, it's a little hot. It'll be okay. Out of the frying pan and into the fire, as they said. We left the dock and we backed up, and overall I felt like that went pretty well. Well, we didn't hit anything, so it couldn't go any better. But our plan was just to scooch out and then anchor, and our engine started overheating. There was no water coming out of the exhaust, which is something we always check for, but not when we have like 4 people standing around, like waiting for us to take off.
It's never not been coming out before either.
Yeah, it's never not been coming out. Also, like, there's a freak storm happening right now, which is sick. But yeah, my guess is we tested the engine once, where we took the cap off the strainer, and then we're putting water in it to test that the propeller went forward and back. And this O-ring, I think, fell to the bottom without us realizing it. So it was just sitting in the bottom of the strainer. So I'm gonna guess when this cap was tightened, with no O-ring, it just meant that air was being pulled in to the exhaust instead of water. It's starting to rain though, so I'm gonna put this back on and then get inside.
We anchored as soon as we could and turned off the engine. This was almost comedic. The hardest part about our engine being unusable in the Bahamas was that we couldn't quickly flip it on to move or re-anchor. Not having that option left me with a ton of anxiety, and now we were finding ourselves in that exact same position. I guess the universe decided I needed to work on letting go of this fear more.
My laying down wife and my busted hose.
I'm glad I'm not the busted hose.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna say, keep it simple, stupid. Next step, if it wasn't the O-ring, probably this guy. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this kind of like new and get it back on and try again. Still no luck, still not getting any water out of our exhaust. So we're just gonna keep working our way up the system and say, maybe it is the impeller. Unfortunately, this is on the back side of our engine, so it was like the least accessible spot, but we're making do. Just playing some engine compartment yoga. I'm gonna say we're missing a couple.
Yeah, that's definitely broken. Because air was getting into the system instead of water, the engine wasn't able to cool, and the impeller in the water pump became overheated and broke off 3 of its splines.
That impeller was terrible to get in. I feel like I see why everybody takes the whole pump off instead of just trying to get the impeller back fitted in. But we got it on, and now I'm just screwing back in the plate.
When screwing this plate back on, one of the screw heads broke off, leaving a screw stuck in there that we still haven't been able to get back out.
I got my my sleepy time hair, my updo, but my updo has fallen. Oh, how the mighty updos have fallen. Got at it this morning. I talked to my boy Hunter. You know Hunter, truly the GOAT. Initially we were kind of like, okay, well if the impellers broke and went down into the system, they would be like the entrance to the heat exchanger, which would be terrible to get off. But we were like, okay, what if we can backwash the system? So we took off the hose at the elbow here, and we also took off the hose at the back of the water pump and back flushed it, hoping the splines would come off of the heat exchanger, or like the entrance to the heat exchanger, and back through the system and out the pipe. That didn't happen though. So it's kind of like, okay, what's next? And it's like, okay, well, what if we just primed it full of water and then gave it a shot? So I'm like kind of in a hurry, working through, getting all the hoses back connected. And I noticed 2 dark blobs in the hose as I was priming it. And I thought it was just like algae buildup or something. So I took that hose off and I dumped it, and that was 2 of the splines. Well, if 2 of the splines went this way, could the other spline have also went this way and I just haven't found it yet? And right in the entrance of the water pump was the 3rd spline. So now all of the splines are accounted for. So we're gonna get the hoses back on, we're gonna prime it again, and then give it a go.
After replacing the O-ring, cutting the broken end off the hose, replacing the impeller, and finding the missing splines, we still weren't getting water out of the exhaust. Patrick did some digging online and found a thread of people talking about sanding down the backing plate, because they tend to get divots in them after so much use, and putting in that new impeller and O-ring made a gap, and it was affecting the suction through the system. What happened next was the most beautiful thing we've ever seen. Water was coming out of the exhaust.
So after like a lot of like back and forth and trying to figure out, I feel like this plate finally is what fixed it.
Woo!
Woo, dude. I'm so thirsty.
Oh my god.
To Gatorade Town.
With water coming out of the exhaust, we were ready to make our first hop north to Fort Pierce, Florida.
First day heading north. It is way too hot to stay in Florida. And we need to get out of here because in like a month and a half our insurance doesn't cover us if we get hurricane down here.
The unpredictable weather here is not fun. This will be our first time going into the ocean since we were in there with Hunter and we're dying, so.
I'm just trying to like stay calm. I know anxiety has like a lot to do with seasickness too. So I think it'll be fine.
Today should only be like 1 to 2 foot waves, so hopefully that stays true.
Sky come bearing up before us. We hang on the hem of your gown. Blue sky come, promise not to leave us. Tarry not to our town.
We've been motor sailing about 6 knots for like the last 6 hours. We got a touch worried about how much fuel we had left, so we decided to just check and then fill the tank up with what we had. When we went to flip the motor back on, I don't know if it's just like the order in which we did it. Maybe we like started it up too fast or like put it into gear too fast. But we started noticing a little bit of steam coming out of the engine, which immediately panicked me because I was like, oh man, we're gonna overheat our engine again. So we turned it off. I do see like some water in our engine compartment. So it makes me think that like maybe not all of the fittings are like airtight and are leaking some water, but I can't really find any right now. So that's like a touch tough. The advice Hunter gave us was just like, let it cool off for 15 minutes, start it up, idle it for 5 minutes. Like when we started it up, water was coming out, which is like, you know, what you want. You just don't want steam coming out along with it.
Thankfully, after priming the hose, we were able to get water pumping through the system again, which was perfect timing because the summer squall was rolling in out of nowhere.
Don't love the storm that we're kind of heading into. We just have like a mile before we're getting into the inlet, so hopefully we can just beat it. But yeah, yikes. First thunderstorm on the boat. It seems like we've hit a summer squall right as we were trying to get into the inlet. I think we're just gonna have to keep heading north, probably past the inlet a little bit, and just wait for it to blow over. We went from having like 10 knots of wind behind us, like 5 to 10, all of a sudden to 20 knots ahead of us. So, how are you feeling, my lovely wife?
I wasn't doing too bad until we got close enough that I felt the cold front and how cold it is, and we watched all the other boats go in because they're much faster than us. Now I'm a little freaked. But there's nothing more we can do than I guess keep going for a while.
Yep, I think that's about right. We're becoming storm sailors like that one dude, Skip something or another. I think his name is Skip Novak.
I don't want to be a storm sailor.
Too bad.
Of course, our first sail back, just the two of us. This is. Oh boy.
You can see the channel markers up here,
Yeah.
which almost look like they're out of it, but I think we're gonna wait for it to pass. So we might go like a mile up, then spin back down or something. We might just spin in circles, I don't know.
I've always had fear around storms, and I knew we would get caught in a storm eventually and that it was going to cause me to panic. I definitely didn't expect it to happen today, but you can't always predict these things. I guess it's just another fear I need to work on. We shifted from 9 knots of wind coming from behind us to 30 and 40 knot gusts hitting us dead on. Huge shout out to Patrick because he remained really calm through this whole thing. Right after the storm cleared, a rainbow appeared on the horizon. Neither of us have ever seen a full rainbow before. This was truly stunning and brought us so much peace about the experience. We arrived safely in Fort Pierce, ready to have a little downtime, because so far getting back in the water has not been an easy transition. We didn't get too much time to rest though, because the next day an even bigger squall came through. We ended up dragging in an already very confused anchorage. We had to turn on the engine to fight against the wind to keep us from running into any other boats until the weather calmed down enough that we could reset.
It's gonna be okay. It'll pass soon enough.
One of my biggest fears for moving onto a sailboat was storms.
They're gonna be Michaela Novak, storm sailor.
No. There's hail. A bunch of hail bouncing in, hitting us.
Oh. I really hope that the solar panels are okay. It's gonna be a bummer if they end up all cracked and busted. Well, somebody left a hatch open in one of the bedrooms. So now a whole thing of bedding is soaking wet.
Oh my gosh. Thankfully, somebody else put mattress protectors on all the beds. So the mattress didn't actually get wet at all. But the bedding and the pillows and everything is sopping.
It's sort of like an indoor-outdoor living space.
Wait, do you like the welcome to my crib intro?
I don't know. Welcome to my crib intro.
Blue sky come bearing up before us. We hang on the hem of your gown.